We're back with another live. Welcome and thank you for joining us in this event, which is part of our week of actions. My name is Dr. Devin Ojeda, and my pronouns are they them. I'm the senior national organizer at NCTE, and with me are four families to share their stories and why non discrimination protections are essential in healthcare services. But first, let's begin this panel by recognizing this land. As we gather in this virtual space, we must acknowledge that the ground beneath our feet is historically the home of Indigenous peoples, many of whom have been forced to leave for other lands. Native nations negotiated to government and preserving their sovereign land, rights, and privileges through treaties. When the land wasn't seceded through treaties, it was stolen from our indigenous relatives. This acknowledgement recognizes the first caretakers of this land, the suffering they endured, and the sacrifices made by Native people. I'm currently an uninvited guest on the land of the Anacostans people. The Anacostan culture spanned the entire region known today as Washington, D.C. May we remember the indigenous peoples are not a people of the past, but are here with us now, continuing to demonstrate their talents and gifts amidst a background of ongoing colonialism and oppression. If Indigenous people are on this live video in the chat, you're invited to share your tribe in the chat so that we can recognize that you are here. I hope that uh, this I hope this land acknowledgement statement will inspire others to stand in solidarity with Native nations. Solidarity looks like this: donating time and money to Indigenous led organizations and communities, amplifying the voices of Indigenous people, leading grassroots to change movements, intentionally learn about the rich history of Indigenous peoples that inhabited and cared for the land you currently stand on. Include space for meaningful land acknowledgments in your events and presentations, and returning lands to its original stewards. Um, Now that we've talked about that, I would like to now introduce our guests. Let's uh, let's start with the Smiths first, and my amazing supervisor, Cy Smith, uh, Director of Organizing. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Sure, Devin. Thank you so much for having us, having the Smith with you tonight. My name is Sebastian Smith, or Cy for short. As Devin mentioned, my pronouns are he and him, and I am the organizing director at the National Center for Trans Equality, or NCTE. And I have my amazing wife with me this evening, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
So my name is Brandy Headington Smith. I am the beautiful wife of Sebastian Smith. My pronouns are she, her, and queen, and I am an employee of FedEx Office. I am a graphic designer by trade, and I'm really excited about this conversation.
Welcome and thank you for being here. Next, we have our friend Diego Sanchez from P Flag. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Diego. My pronouns are he and elle. I'm very excited to be here. I'm an openly transsexual man, Latino, and I'm really, really glad we're taking this subject directly on. I am also uh, fortunate to be able to work with Cy and Devin, so that's a thrill.
Thank you, Diego. It's always a thrill to work with you. Next, we have Erin Bowling and Ellen Bowling. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Oh,
Oh, Erin, you're muted.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Erin. My pronouns are she, her. I'm Ellie's mom. And I'm especially excited that we're here talking about this tonight because the fight for trans rights in healthcare is really personal for me. Obviously, since I have a transgender child, and as a parent, obviously, you want your child to be comfortable with who they are and be healthy and happy, and that means access to healthcare that affirms who they are and recognizes their humanity and treats all the aspects of their health. their mental, emotional, and physical health. But on a larger scale, I believe that we're all connected and called to care for the oppressed and marginalized, and that includes trans people. I've seen the statistics and I understand the dangers of not affirming trans people and not giving them access to affirming care. So I'm here tonight to talk about this because I'm in a fight for a lot of people's lives.
Thank you, Erin. Ellie, is there a few words you want to share?
Hi, I'm Ellie, pronouns they, them, and I'm here tonight because it's a subject very close to my heart, not just because I'm trans myself, but I know many kids who have felt invisible or not there, and I'm here to be there for them so that I can get better health care for all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have you both here. Next, we have Miriam and Cameron. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Miriam Reynolds. I'm a counselor and an art therapist, and I'm Cameron's mom. And I'm here tonight because we live in Texas, and our healthcare actually was threatened earlier this year, and it involved some litigation that our doctor had to kind of engage in to even be able to provide care for Cameron. So this is very personal. So I agree with everything Erin said, and I appreciate what you said, Erin. You said it beautifully. But yeah, we're here to fight for Cameron's access to healthcare and everyone in Texas.
Hi, I'm Cameron. My pronouns are he, him. I'm 17 years old, and I'm here for the same thing. So she basically said everything.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. It's so lovely to have you here as well. Thank you again, everyone. Before we get into the questions, I first want to thank all of you for your activism and your reasons for speaking out for what's right. First, I also want to share why our campaign is essential. Protect Trans Health is responding to Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, or as some people may call it, Obamacare. This clause ensures that patients are protected against discrimination. When Trump was in office, they wanted to remove these provisions and exclude trans people. Still, we dominated the comments and delayed their process by eliminating their process of eliminating our protections, not only in healthcare, but we also fought in education and in housing. We ultimately triumphed over the potential harms of what could have been. But now more than ever, we need your help. What is going on currently is that the Biden-Harris administration has the opportunity to improve this clause in these protections, but we need your help to share your support to protect trans people in healthcare. Which is why it's really important for y'all to check out www.protecttranshealth.org and share your support or share your stories today. And I begin my questions to the panelists about why we're here. So the first question I want to address Brandy, Erin, and Miriam. We'll start with Brandy. What do non-discrimination protections like Section 1557 mean for you every day? Mean for your everyday life, and what does it mean for your family?
Sure, great question. So obviously affirming care is just that, right? It reinforces who you are and how you show up in the world. And so as part of this relationship, part of our journey, because Sebastian's transition is his journey, but it would be silly to imagine that I'm not also on that journey, right? It's a different experience, but it's a journey for me as well. And so being there, watching him go through applying for this surgery, his gender affirming surgeries, and being denied left and right with different healthcare providers, with different insurance providers, to finally have to just say, to be blessed enough to say, well, I'm just going to have to pay it, out of pocket. Obviously, there are millions of people who don't have access to that, right? Who don't have that as a resource on a personal level. And so being able to support him through that and find the right avenue for him. And then after, post surgery, watching him go through the ebbs and flows, right? Did I make a mistake? Is this the right thing? Because it's hypothetically, you can't take it. You can take it back, but in that moment, you're like, wow, this is done, right? And so supporting him has been a journey for both of us, but it was something that he needed to affirm himself. And so that scared me, right? To think about, what if the answer is just no? What if that's the answer? And not only does he have to live that, but we have to live that, right? On the flip side of that, for me as his spouse, I need gender affirming care as well. When I go to the doctor, I can't tell you how many times the same doctor would see me year after year and would ask me about, do we want to have babies, or am I on birth control? And we would have the same conversation. Are you on birth control? No. Well, are you sexually active? Yes. Well, you're going to get pregnant. Well, that's not how that works for me. That's not how that works for our relationship. But if you would take the 2 minutes to read my chart, you would know that you see me every year, right? And so is that affirming for me? Does that mean I really want to go see you as a medical professional, that you can't look me in my eye and have a genuine conversation with me? So I think those protections are so foundational to trans folk and the people that love them, right? That want to support them and see them be who they are in the world. So like I said, I'm excited about this conversation. I really want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandy. Miriam, the same questions. What does non-discrimination protections in healthcare mean to you and your family?
I mean, after the year that we've had this year, they might be the reason why we still have healthcare at this point. Honestly, like I'm not even sure, all of the kind of the workings of what happened, but Cameron's healthcare was threatened, right? Like Cameron's doctor was ordered to stop seeing trans kids due to political pressure. I mean, that's really what it was. So for me, gender affirming care for Cameron is not optional. It's absolutely essential. It's not a political issue. This is my child's life. Like it's of the utmost importance. It's not up for debate in my, you know what I mean? In our life, this isn't some cute optional care that we just want to have. This is absolutely essential.
Thank you for sharing. Same question goes to you, Erin. What does Section 1557 mean for you and your family?
One of the things that makes it very important for our family is it means that when those protections are in place, Ellie can have access to life-affirming care wherever we are in the United States. So if we travel, if we move, right now we're in Virginia, but if we went to a new state, I wouldn't have to be worried about whether my child could receive medical treatment. We live fairly close to DC, and we still had a really hard time finding healthcare. So I can't imagine how much more difficult that is for people in other areas of the country. But by having those protections in place, it increases the number of providers of gender affirming care for trans people moving forward. And that improves their quality of life. And I think there's a lot of components to that, but as mentioned, it applies to all people. Like I would love to see all medical providers have forms updated to include a non-binary option for gender and have providers ask everyone their preferred pronouns and have training in what gender dysphoria is and how to address it, because currently a lot of times trans patients and their families are put in a position where they have to educate their provider, and that's really an unfair burden, especially to put on a minor. And I just can't stress enough that gender affirming care should be available all over the United States, so that if my child or any child or person any age is away from home and is injured or sick and needs medical attention, we don't have to worry about whether they're going to experience emotional trauma on top of whatever led them to need care in the first place in that instance.
Thank you. From the rest of our panelists, is there anything else to add about this question about what the Section 5057 means, or should we go to the next question?
I would just like to say that without Section 1557, some doctors would just be completely off limits to me. It's like going to a courthouse, and if you tell them, "Oh, I have a child," they are like, "Sorry, you have a child. You can't come here. Go somewhere else, please." It's just very hard to find a doctor who will work with you. And if you openly state that you're trans, you might not be able to find a doctor at all. But lots of doctors will provide gender-affirming healthcare. But Section 1557 means that if they receive any federal funding, they have to treat trans people. Like all of their patients, not worse, but like a normal person. And I find that very important.
Yes. Thank you, Ellie. Which leads me to my next question then, Ellie. In terms of doctors, what do you expect from a doctor when you go visit?
I expect to be able to be myself. I don't want to conceal myself because one time, somebody asked me, one of my doctors asked me, "Hey, are you having are you having any romantic feelings with a girl, or is there anything weird going on?" And they were obviously planning on giving me like the puberty talk and like everything, and like I felt like yes, but I didn't want to admit it because I was like, no, that's not me, because I was like, I'm not a boy, so I shouldn't have a crush on a girl. That was how it was in my head, even though that's completely wrong. But it's still how it was, and I just didn't want to have that talk because that wasn't me. So I don't want to have to, or not have to hide who I am because of these rules in my head. And inclusivity in healthcare is different than tolerance, is what one thing I would like to say. Because, like, there's a difference between me going to the doctor and them treating me like every other patient and being like, oh, right, we have to treat you because of this one thing about you. I would be accepted as I am.
So for you, trans inclusivity in healthcare means being able to be yourself while you're interacting with your doctors and feeling safe in that area in healthcare services, to be able to be honest about who you are as a person, so you get the best treatment possible.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, no, that's real. Cameron, same question to you. What does trans inclusivity looks like in healthcare? Like, what do you expect your doctors? What do you expect from your doctors, I should say?
I think that maybe I have very low expectations because I'm not one of those trans people who cares if they like someone calls me the wrong name or if they misgender me. I kind of just like am like, man, what am I gonna do? It's like I'll see them a couple times, like maybe in like a year, and it doesn't bother me or whatever. But I think like for everyone, not just me, not just my personal like opinion, but like because like obviously I know people who like will like have a mental breakdown if they get like if someone like misgenders them and then they like correct them and they do it again. Because I know in a doctor's office it's a different environment than if I were to just tell somebody and be like, hey, it's Cameron, he, him, whatever. But in a doctor's office, they are looking at charts constantly, and like sometimes they just glance at things instead of like actually taking time to read through and being like, oh, this says like the name they prefer, instead of saying like my legal name, because my name is not legally changed. And so like when I go to doctor's office, they'll call me by my name and my dead name, and I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do. That's what like my name is in the charts. And I think that the thing, like what we need is for like me to say like, hey, it's Cameron now, and then them just to like get it and then be like, okay, done. And like even if my name's not legally changed, to like just have some part in there, or make sure that every doctor and nurse is looking at the chart saying that it says my preferred name instead of dead naming me, and just like take that like 2 seconds to like read through the entire charts instead of glancing. And I've never had like bad experiences at like a doctor's office. The last time that I went to like anywhere medical was like the ER, and they were kind of just like, my mom corrected the head and like the guy that came in and started talking like 5 times, and he just couldn't get it. I don't know if he wasn't like listening or if he were like it was confused or something. I'm not sure, but like I just think if we just get that part where they just like can like take time to either listen to you like what you're saying to them, or to like just like look at the chart because it's there. I mean, they like normally they would ask you, especially if it's a healthcare like clinic for like where you get your like where trans people get their healthcare. They're gonna have a chart saying what do you want to be like called, right? They don't want to like, they're trying to make you the most comfortable you can be in those situations. So I think that if it's just like a matter of like maybe it's not I feel like it's not that bad, but I know that like in Texas, I can go anywhere and someone can be like, "Ooh, that's kind of nasty," like, and then just like not respect me, or like just like I don't know. In like in the healthcare like setting, I feel like that it's just like just take some time to like think, and not like, because I know people will initially look at you and be like, I'm gonna guess what you are, and then you'll correct them, and they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But if they just like take time to like think about it, and then it just make it all over a good experience for everyone, so that they can feel the most comfortable that that they need to feel.
Yeah, I totally I get maybe create treat you know creating a system where people could at least see what your real name is, and and as providers being able to just get to know their patients instead of just glancing on into different paperwork, and not think of a patient as a human being. I think those are really really good points that you bring up, Cameron. um, Ellie and Cameron, the other question I wanted to ask is, um, how important is gender affirming care for you? And I don't know who wants to go first, but I'm very, very curious about how gender affirming care has impacted your life, and having access to gender affirming care, and how it impacted your life. I can choose first. Cameron, we can go with you first about how gender affirming care impacts your life.
Um, well, I mean, obviously, it's basically my entire existence. If I weren't to have the care that I need, instead of like saying I want it, I need it to like survive, to exist in this world. Sure, there's obviously going to be people that like are going to be hating on me or judging me and all of that, but like it's it's not optional. It is definitely necessary for my survival, or for me to just be comfortable existing, because life's hard enough as it is, and if I can't be myself, how am I supposed to like live? Like, not I that okay, that sounded kind of harsh, but I meant like, how am I supposed to like be happy with my like whole entire like existence if I'm not comfortable in my everyday life? So it's like it means the world to me to have what I need to be comfortable and to be myself, because if I didn't have this, I don't know how like my life would have like turned out, because if I didn't go down the path I chose to being myself, and I went down the path of just hiding, then like it like maybe it would be like worse, like 10 times worse, I'm assuming, because I feel like hiding things is not a way to live in any sense. Like honesty is just the way to go. So it's like my entire existence to just like have what I need to function. It's like if you need a cup of water and you're dehydrated, you need it, right? So you go and then you drink the water. So it's like if I lose that water, I'm gonna die because of dehydration. So it's like it's not optional. It's necessary for my survival.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Yes, gender affirming care is water. Ellie, same question to you. How important is gender affirming care for you, and how has it impacted your life?
It really changed my life. I don't think I'd be here if I went down the path of hiding it. And because I've had gender affirming healthcare and I don't have to do the things that people would do to deal with gender dysphoria in the past, and that were drastic and even dangerous things. And I'm happy I don't have to do that, because people will say I'm broken or damaged. And if I'm broken or damaged for being myself and doing something necessary for me to live my life happily, then I guess everything about me is broken too, is kind of what I would say. Because that's just being myself. The same people who would tell me, oh my gosh, be yourself, express yourself, could also sometimes are like, oh my gosh, that's so wrong. You shouldn't do that.
So it's very inconsistent, you would say, right? That
there's an inconsistency, and it really changed my life that I had that affirming healthcare when some other people don't. I have plenty of friends who don't have that healthcare, and I want it to be more accessible so that many people can have the same experience I have.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you so much, Cameron. I want to now change it up and ask a few questions to Sai and Diego. Let's go with Sai first. How have services changed from when you were seeking gender affirming care compared to what gender affirming care looks like now?
I feel like before I start, I'm about to age myself. I think the biggest piece of the change for me is the visibility piece, because, years ago when I started my transition, it was almost like it was a secret society. Like you had to know somebody, you had to know this person, and know that doctor, and know this doctor, and this doctor did this. It was so under the table and so secret. It wasn't a lot of visibility even brought to, the things that trans people are facing, especially the marginalized groups of us, BIPOC and our youth, so there was no visibility, when I started this. So it became where the community had to stay connected to one another to be able to pass those resources back and forth. People all the time, how I started this work is I became very vocal with my transition in the work that I was doing. And people would, social media inbox me, hey, what doctor do you see? Hey, what do you do? Where you go for this? And I started to realize that those options, number one, were not available for us, especially those of us that are the most marginalized. And then the community had no access to what those options even were. A lot of us didn't even know where to start. And we looked to each other to get the information, looked at community to get those starts and to direct us to those safe doctors and safe providers. So what I've seen, here lately, and wow, the visibility piece is a double-sided sword, right? Because we can see the attack on our babies, right? We can see that happening right in front of us. But the other side of that is at least we're now a part of the conversation. Because before now, we were not a part of the conversation. And so many of us had to fight in the background and claw for and strap for little pieces of resources in the background that now a lot of is on the forefront. A lot of this is being brought up that trans people deserve gender affirming care and what that looks like. And then also our doctors that have been providing this and supporting us for many years are being able to step out front and say, this is how it's done. It's not as easy as, it's not as hard as politicians and lawmakers want to make it seem. Because number one, why are lawmakers even in our healthcare decisions? Let's start there. Number one. but it's not as difficult as lawmakers make it seem to be able to provide this care. So I think for me, of many things, the visibility piece has done wonders for access and for making sure that this is a part of the conversation. So also, so some of these bills and things that are happening are not just being silently passed behind us and we don't know it's happening. So again, I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is that the visibility on trans lives and the diversity of us and what our community looks like and how amazingly wonderful we are, all of those things. So yeah.
Can I just add really quickly that I think also part of that change has been that there are more trans people in the room of decision, the rooms that decisions are being made about trans folk.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Like, trans people have been elevated to a place where they're not locked out of every single room, where people are in a room making a decision about their lives and their healthcare, and then they just have to deal with the consequences. There are rooms like this where they are actively making decisions about themselves and who they are and what they deserve and what they need in their lives. And so I think that changes for this, obviously this generation, because, like, I don't want to age you, but how old were you when you started your transition?
29.
Right.
Yeah,
and so
29.
we got babies right here. Forgive me for calling you babies, because I know you don't think you babies, but I'm not a baby. So, we have babies right here who are, I wish you had the opportunity to just be a kid and not have to advocate for yourself. I wish that for you wholeheartedly. But I'm also so proud to see you guys taking the world by the horns and making your own choices. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I know that we saw this incredible movement happening in Virginia where kids were walking out. I know Ellie was part of that, and very, very, very full of pride to see a bunch of youth speaking out and fighting against hatred and discrimination. Diego, I wanted to see what your thoughts are around gender affirming care and the evolution of this access to gender affirming care, and sharing some of your experiences as well.
Thank you so much, Devin. It's just such an honor to be among this multi-generational moment and multi-type of person moment. Look, let's just break this down. Everybody that we see in a medical environment, for the most part, has read and memorized the entire book called Grey's Anatomy. That's not a TV show, it's a book. And it's got every little part of every little body. And they had to learn every little part of that to get medical degrees, whether it's nursing or whatever. People who are that smart, that can read Grey's Anatomy and remember everything, surely can learn to say the word Cameron. And it just isn't that hard. So for me, I mean, when I got out of high school, I started trying to look at surgeries, and they just weren't right back in those when the dinosaurs were walking the earth. But where that went was it kind of a little bit of what Cy was saying. We had very few of us, and we used to make jokes that we all knew each other because, frankly, we pretty much all knew each other. We were there before there were computers. We used to do phone groups to have conversations, and some of those folks are still alive. Some of us are still alive. Some of us aren't. But at the end of the day, what we learned was that we had to create a language that let us get some of what we needed at the doctor's office. So we couldn't say, well, I don't know who's going to listen to this, so I don't want to say, we have a code. And part of the insurance codes of getting us care required us to have to learn language that was less than Grey's Anatomy, but not by that much. We had to learn what every little procedure or every medication was called, and it didn't sound anything like what was actually happening. It had codes so that we could receive care that everyone else was able to get just because, and it's gotta, For people like me, I'm looking at commercials today where they have like retired football players saying, I have this testosterone because, I'm old and, I need everything to work. It isn't like that. First of all, it isn't the same kind of testosterone that FTMs would use, that female to male trans people would use. But the very fact that there are commercials of people talking about what their body isn't producing that they need, that's our story. In order for us to be whole, we need certain things that our body's not producing. And in order for us to be right, just like all those people taking airtime on television, it's a very simple solution. Where we started was like, I'd go into a room somewhere praying to God that they wouldn't yell the wrong name across the waiting area so that I could actually get to the front desk to say what it was that I needed. Showing up for your appointment, one of the things that I was able to do for the last 30 or 40 years is teach medical institutions to give people numbers so that you don't say the wrong name across a waiting room, but you have number 4, and everybody can be number 4. There's no gender assigned. But we would go, like when I would go into a room for an examination or treatment or whatever, there would always be this cadre of medical school people because they had never seen one before. And, it was very difficult, but it was mandatory. And part of that mandatory nature was so that Ellie and Cameron can go into rooms today and not have total confusion among the people who were younger then. And that's what it's been about. In the time that I've had all of my surgeries, all of those had to be covered out of pocket. So one of the things I've gotten to work for over the decades is insurance coverage. And so that is one of the things that we deserve. It is why Section 1557 needs to be real, and why every comment that is made on the NCTE portal, on the Protect Trans Health portal, is really, really important, because we have to remember that this is an act by the Biden-Harris administration. They're putting this forward. We're here to support what they're trying to do, and they're trying to do more than was done during the Obama administration. We're affirming something that other people are asking us to accept and support. That is one of the easier jobs we've had in our lives. So I think everybody should make sure they do it.
Thank you so much, Diego. And I remember there was a time before the Affordable Care Act where being transgender was a precondition, and you weren't able to get insurance coverage. And I'm glad we're not in those times anymore where insurance companies could just discriminate, not just, any diagnosis, but being trans, was it was a diagnosis that prohibit you from getting insurance coverage. Yeah, Affordable Care Act is really essential. And so is Section 1557. I wanted to see if the parents and the kids have anything to add on access to gender affirming care, or if you have any other thoughts about what Sai, Brandy, and Diego has spoken to.
I would like to add that it's not that there isn't any gender affirming care currently. It's just, it feels like there's never enough. Because there is a walkout that one of you mentioned earlier, and that had around 12,000 students participate in over. And some of them, yes, were allies, but most were trans kids. And it's just thinking about that just in Virginia, openly trans kids walked out of school. There's probably way more, and with the amount of gender affirming healthcare, it just can't cover every kid. And with cis people, they don't really have that problem. So I feel like we should be treated as equals and also have a healthcare.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Ellie. Yes, it seems that there are more and more trans people and coming out of the closet. And I think it speaks to this visibility that has been mentioned before, especially from Sai and Brandy. And so, this is the part where we get any questions, and I don't see any questions in chat. I don't know if there are any questions you all want to ask or have more conversations about.
I have,
Go ahead.
I wanted to say something 2 seconds ago.
Yes, go ahead, please.
You were like, if you wanted to add anything on to what everyone was saying.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, well, to Brandy, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Bella.
We love dogs.
We don't love barking dogs.
Don't
Bella,
be
you know.
Bella. Bella.
I wanted to say thank you because you were like, I wish you could just be a kid. And I feel like I want that too. Like, I wish I could just walk around and like not like have the apparent difference about me that like everyone that's like the new gossip around. It's like, I mean, it's not that excessive because like there's a lot of trans kids in my school or like whatever else. And so I think it's just that I like my water analogy, like I said earlier. It's like I can't live without it. Like I need it. And it's like, what's the point? Like if I were in the Sahara Desert and I was stranded and I had the option of like water, I would drink it, right? You would take that option if you had it. And it sucks to think that some people don't have that option and so they will just die there because of like what the political beliefs are now, making everything like sticking their noses in our business. Like it doesn't concern you. Like it's none of your business to begin with. And it's like the first thing you learn in elementary school is like mind your business and keep your hands to yourself, right? So they're just not listening to any of that anymore, and they're just sticking their nose in all the places that it shouldn't be, and like just like aggressively like punching you in the face for no reason. It's just like you walk up to someone and just sock them. Like there's no need for that. And I think that it's I personally like never like wanted to talk about who I was as a person because I was like almost ashamed for the longest time. It took me till this year to like actually say anything to anyone. Like I had my best friend who I've been friends with for like 2 years, and like I never told him that I was trans. He kind of just guessed, but I said it, and he was like, "What?" Like, oh, I kind of knew, and he was like, "Why do you never say anything?" I was like, I never really wanted to, and it's like just the pressure of everyone else's opinion just like pinned on me that I was just like, if I say something, I don't know who will think differently of me or like what people are gonna say, and so I kind of just like kept to myself, and I think that that's such a terrible thing. That's like, once again, like I just want to be a kid, right? So I never said anything and like shoved it all down and was ashamed to be myself. And even the doctors, like at my healthcare place, they kind of knew. They were like, "You don't want this, but you want this." Like it took me like a bunch of months to even like start testosterone because they were kind of like, you're not sure what you want because of how I felt about me being trans. I was like, I don't want this. Like I don't want to be trans, right? Because it's gonna make life so much. It's gonna make life so much harder to live, and just make it more of a struggle because of like me being just a kid anyway, and then me being like black and Mexican and all these other things. That it's just adding another. It's like adding more clothes to the load of laundry you already did. Like you're just like, I don't want to do this. Like I have to though. So it took like a long time for me to even want to talk about it, and then being able to get my care, and then for people not being able to talk about it and not being able to get their care, that I was finally just like, Jesus, I guess I'm going to say something because I know not a lot of other people want to or will. So I was like, yeah, let me try and do something, whether it works or not. I'm just going to try to fight for what I believe in because that's just kind of who I am as a person, more or less.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing, Cameron. Cameron and Ellie, what are some of the misconceptions that you want to push against? Some of the misinformation that we hear from the media and from politicians. What is it that what misconceptions do you want to address here on the live right now?
One misconception I want to address is that it's just a phase, because it sounds crazy, but there are people who are like, oh, when I was younger, I claimed to be trans too, and I grew out of it. All of them are just in phases that they never got out of them, and they're just being childish, which for you it might be a phase, but for me it's just a way of life. There's nothing like wrong with us. It's been proven that they've done brain scans and proven that trans people's minds are more similar to the gender they identify with. It's not some crazy biological mistake. It's just a thing that happens sometimes, and we should all accept that.
Thank you so much, Ellie. And how about you, Cameron? What are some misconceptions you would want to fight against when it comes to being a trans kid?
I think one of the big misconceptions that I see is like I agree that it was like the just the face thing. Like when I first told my sister that I was trans, she was like, "Nah, bro, it's just a phase." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, why would I choose to make this a phase in my life? Like, it's like everyone going through their emo phase. Like everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna regret that later. But like, this isn't a phase. Like if this were a phase, it's the longest phase of my life. It's been going on for years. Like, why? This is a long phase." But I think that like one of the I think the big misconception is that people think we want this. Like, I mean, if I could be born in a cisgender body, like I would choose that like any day, right? Because like it would make my life so much easier, and I wouldn't have to deal with all these politicians and like all of these things that like no one as a human would want to deal with. And so it's like when people are making the argument that they're choosing this, people are pressuring them into doing this. First off, I don't do things I don't want to do most of the time. Like if I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it. So
That's true.
like why would I be like, yeah, go ahead, pressure me into doing something with my life that's gonna affect me greatly. Like my mom couldn't care less of anything that I want to be. She'll help me out with whatever I choose. She would never be like to be this. Maybe when it comes to like cleaning, she'll force me to do something. But she won't like force me to change my entire life just because she wants me to. And I think it's like, why would anyone want their kid to be trans? Like they want them to like be happy. They want them to be born in the wrong, like the right, not the wrong, the right body. And being born in the wrong body is like, it's like I didn't choose to be trans. This is just kind of how my life turned out. Like this is who I was born to be. And if like I would never choose this on like my worst enemy. Like this is hard. It's hard to live, and it's hard to fight back, and it's hard to deal with all the hatred in this world, and it's hard to just be a normal person in society. So it's like I think the big misconception is like that people we want this. I don't think maybe it's just me, but like I'm thinking like I don't want this. Like I would never want this if I could just have what like I've like if the body that I was intended to have, or like just everything that I wanted in life. Like that I would never choose to want this, but this is how it is, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to keep me happy and to keep being who I want to be, whether I was born like this or not. Like this is who I am, and I'm gonna fight for what I want. But it's not that I like want this. This is not what I wanted, and not how I expected my life to go when I was like 8 years old. But this
Well,
is yeah,
and
this is
remember that we have one of the really important things here is that every young person on this call here has a loving parent, and that's not true for absolutely everybody. So if you're going to have to go through something that's a challenge, we're very blessed. I was also fortunate. I told my parents at age 5 that I was born wrong, and they embraced me from that point forward. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's really important to recognize that family support is part of what gives us the ability to do the things we want and to make our own choices.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Cameron. There's this idea placed in some people's minds that the school system, by being accepting, is trying to shove their agendas down our throats, and that it's wrong to do that, and that you shouldn't be shoving being trans in a kid's face, which they're not. I don't do stuff I don't want to do unless my mother forces me. And like, I feel like they're right. That we shouldn't shove our agendas down each other's throats. Maybe they should take their own advice. But the school system is not being like, being trans is okay and the right thing to do. You should be trans. They're like, just like, hey, what are your pronouns? It's not anything drastic. Like, hi, free hormones right here. Go ahead, take them. That's not what they're doing. It's not, nobody's shoving this agenda down our throats. We're doing this on our own accord. And if it's a phase, it is
It's not a phase.
a really long phase that I'm not going to cringe at later. So.
Can I just add really quickly that I heard the word broken earlier. I've heard like this is not what I would choose. And I just want to say, you guys are not broken. You're not the problem. And the issue is the system. The issue is our societal norms that are so strong that somebody would wake up and feel like, this can't be right. I must be broken. Right? But it's not me, it's not you, it's not the person next to you, it's the system. It's just, there in the women couldn't get bank accounts until the 60s and the 70s, right? Up until that point, that's just the way it was. And it was the system that was broken. It wasn't that the problem was vaginas. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the system, right? And so, in that same way, it's the system that's broken. And we have to remember that when we're talking about fighting against the machine, that we're fighting against societal norms, not against who we woke up as and who we show up as. And so, you should be able to wake up and go, today I'm going to shop in the boys section. Or maybe there shouldn't be a boys section, right? Maybe there should just be clothes.
Yeah.
And you pick whatever works for you, right? It's the societal norm that we're pushing against, and not who we are as people. And I think that's important to call out.
I completely agree. And one thing about like clothes, it's just a societal norm. Like, you can't say like the hoodie I'm wearing right now is for boys. It's for me, not for other people, or it's not assigned to a certain gender. And I actually have a story that I was wearing a mermaid t-shirt from the girls section in Justice, and my mom was like, I think we should start shopping in the boys section. And I started crying. And I think that's kind of a moment that set me onto the path I am now today of being myself and being who I am. And I think that was a pivotal moment in discovering who I am. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I would say I don't tell people that I was born in the wrong body. I was just born in the wrong society. It's society that is wrong. It's not me that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with anyone here in this panel. And so we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to end on a good note. I wanted to ask all of you, why is Protect Trans Health, the campaign, so important, and why is it important to submit a comment in support of Section 1557? We'll go ahead and start with Erin and Ellie Bowling. Why is Protect Trans Health important to you, and why is it important for people to submit those comments?
Because
I think we've talked a lot tonight about the fact that it's misinformation and fear that drives discrimination and hate against transgender people of all ages. And I think that we combat that by sharing our humanity. So sharing our stories, whether we do that anonymously or publicly, if we're in a safe place to do that, and sharing our support helps people remember transgender is just an adjective to describe a person, but there are so many more important adjectives. My child is creative and fun loving and intelligent and thoughtful and funny. There's
And
a myriad of
fashionable and
and fashionable.
handsome and beautiful and very slay.
But there's a myriad of words that we could all use to describe people that we know that are trans, and so it's really important that that people don't try to boil the complexities of their humanity down to just one word. And as their parents and loved ones, like, we want the same things for them that the parents and loved ones of cis people want, right? We want them to be here on earth with us and happy and healthy and embrace who they are fully. And so the more people that can share their stories or can speak up and support, hopefully the more society is going to realize that we're just doing the best that we can for our children. And, we're not making rash decisions. We are seeking advice from educated professionals to meet our children's needs. And in order to do that, we have to have access to gender affirming care.
Thank you so much. Same question to you, Miriam and Cameron. Why is Protect Trans Health so important?
I mean, I feel like where we are and what we've been through this year, just with our I'm so sorry about the dog, y'all. Oh my
You're
God.
fine, no worries.
Not get her. She just like wants to play with us, so she's just in our face barking. There she is. Oh my. Okay. Just what we've been through with, providing gender affirming care being considered child abuse in Texas, and having our doctor have to sue her employer in order to provide us care. We need the support. That's really my basic message. I think we just need help, and if people are willing to sign on, then please do so. Please help.
I agree, obviously, but I think, like, I need her to be quiet. I think that it's like, how everyone says every vote matters, like when talking about an election, that it's like every comment and everything that anyone says about this topic, like, it matters, that to the point where people will acknowledge what is going on, and like acknowledge that this is not the way it's supposed to be, that we should all be together and stand strong together instead of being against each other and at each other's throats constantly. So it's like every vote matters, every comment, every action, like everything matters. If you like help out with something that like people so strongly believe in,
Thank you so much. Diego, what does Protect Trans Health, why is it important to you?
I think it's really important because until people get counted, we don't have data to show that we exist. Every family, every person who weighs in, whether it's a trans person, a non-binary person, an ally, a family member, it shows that there is a human behind it who values protection and fair treatment and access for transgender people to receive equitable treatment just like everyone else. Because at the end of the day, we actually are just like everyone else.
Thank you, Diego. And then last but not least, the Smiths. Please share why Protect Trans Health is important to you all.
Absolutely. And I think we need to go back to Ellie. I think Ellie should close us out. But I just want to second what Diego says. Y'all, we are talking about basic human rights here. Realize that trans care, while specific and nuanced, is no different than any care that anyone else receives from any doctor anywhere. So it's so unfortunate that we have to carve out these specific spaces to make sure that we are a part of these conversations as well. This is basic human rights. Our doctors are required to do no harm. Do no harm to every patient that comes across them, regardless if they're trans, cis, or anything else. Doctors' responsibility is to do no harm, and it is also our responsibility to take care of ourselves. And policymakers cannot inhibit those relationships, and we need to tell them exactly why they cannot and how they cannot inhibit those relationships. Storytelling is so extremely valuable and important to all of these campaigns. This opportunity, by visiting Protect Trans Health and leaving your comment, is an opportunity for you to tell your story and use your voice. And we're often, all of the panelists here have talked about being silenced. This is another way for us to use our voices, and so very important. So very important.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add that I think what's important is to remember that one of you asked earlier, what are some of the misnomers that people, hear from the media? And I think one of them is that if trans people get this, then that means you get less, as if justice and freedoms are a pie, right? And that's not the truth, right? And so I hopefully this is a lesson for somebody who doesn't know, but the difference between equity and equality, right? So equality is creating a sidewalk that everybody can walk on so they don't get hit by a car. But equity is including a ramp, because there are some people who can't walk, but they still need to be safe from the cars. So with that mindset, that's how you apply that to trans folk, right? It's just healthcare, y'all. It's just healthcare. It's not trans healthcare. It's not Black healthcare. It's not Obamacare. It's just healthcare, y'all. And if it's just healthcare, then doesn't everybody deserve access to that? And so some people have immediate access and other people need equity. They need a way to get to it that's not as difficult for them, because it's harder a little bit for them. And so if we remember that, right, and we keep the humanity in the conversation, then it's like you said earlier, it's not that hard. That's all I got.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Ellie.
Yeah, I would just like to say that, I feel every trans, not even trans person, everybody is a star and should be treated the same. Everybody here is so unique, and everybody on this panel, everybody out watching this, everybody who's typing in the chat could make a diamond dull, if that makes sense. And we're all should be treated as equivalent people. And I feel like that's just a very powerful message, and that's why that it's important to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our panels, and thank you, Ellie, for a really good ending to this panel. Just a quick reminder, please submit your comments at protecttranshealth.org. Let's overwhelm the opposition. And thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all have a good night. This has been incredible.